Hi and welcome. My name is Brett Grossman. I'm a top leader here with Freedom Financial Solutions. And in today's training topic, I'm going to explain to you exactly how you can take, for example, a $2,000 day in premium and make it and turn it into a $4,000, $6,000, $8,000 day by giving a different description to mortgage protection. I'm also going to explain to you in today's video how to explain the tax burden to your clients, whether it's a homeowner or business owner, without getting too technical, without sounding too technical to the point where you confuse people, but you want to give them an insight and you want to open up and expand their mind to the idea of what an IUL would be able to do for them as opposed to what their 401k is doing for them. What I will share with you is that in today's video, this could be the most important information that you'll receive in your career with Freedom Financial Solutions. This is the game changer. So let's get started. One of the things that I've started to realize is when in the home with clients, our main objective, our rule of thumb is that when we go there off of a fresh lead or an ERS appointment or a B lead, warm market, whatever that might be, the rule of thumb is to go in there and do whatever it is that we were meant to do, which would be, in most cases, secure their mortgage, offer them a living benefit product. Typically, it's term life with living benefits, 10, 15, 20, 30-year term with living benefits. If you're using one of our other carriers, American National, it has the return of premium option that allows them to get their money back after 20 years, and or a Smart UL product, which is permanent life insurance coverage, also has all the living benefits, but has a cash value side account at a fixed rate. What I've been able to realize is that if I just went a little bit over, above, and beyond and began to explain a scenario to most people, and most people are contributing to a 401k, I've started to notice that most people, if I don't get too technical, are open-minded to the option of having a tax-free account, cash value accumulation, along with having the living benefits. The key is being able to place them in a position to where the face amount in an IUL actually covers what their mortgage is, whether that's a refinance or a first-time purchase. So it can become a slippery slope, and I believe that this is a little bit more of an advanced training. So if you're brand new in the industry or you're brand new to Freedom Financial Solutions, understand that this is something that will come in time. It's not something that necessarily you're just going to be able to do right away. Now, what I also will recommend is if you're contracted with Life of the Southwest National Life Group, in their back office, they have a ton of trainings back there. You can actually get signed up for a webinar. They have video trainings. Mike Schless does a phenomenal job explaining IULs and how the components of an IUL work. We also do some IUL bootcamp training. So there is a lot of information out there. Again, this is maybe a little bit more advanced. So one of the key things that I want you to keep in mind is when presenting these options, you want to make sure that you're presenting them to an individual who is participating in the conversation. That is a key. And what do I mean by that? What I mean is when we're asking questions in the home, we're not looking for one-word answers. We're looking for people who are typically going to elaborate if we ask them, listen, if your children had to go ahead and transfer in the middle of the school year because you lost your spouse's income, what does that look like? What does life look like for them? And then they give you the response. Oh my goodness, their life would be turned upside down. It would be a horrible situation. I would probably maybe need to relocate for my job. I couldn't imagine downsizing from a 3,000 square foot house to a 2-bedroom apartment. And so these are some of the real life scenarios, but that's what we're looking for. We're looking for people who are going to participate in the conversation. And so what you want to do is this is where you want to take notes. And so one of the things that I deliver to a client or a business owner is two options. Option number one is rule number one, which is what we went there to do, which is explain to them, here's the difference between traditional life insurance, and this is the difference between mortgage protection, term life with living benefits. And I go through everything in detail. explain living benefits, go through everything in detail, ask them the tough questions in the home, find the pain, where the sale is made, get them to elaborate. We're now having a good conversation. I now feel comfortable taking it a step further. I now feel comfortable having a conversation in regards to what they do for a living. Now, I've already kind of stepped into this boundary earlier in the conversation because it's one of the commonalities that we have when we first come into the home is, so tell me, what do you do for work? What do you do for a living? I'll give you an example. I met with a gentleman last night, a 52-year-old man. He's been working at the same job for 26 years. He works for a company that does medical sampling for employees. So basically they have to have drug testing done and make sure that they don't have any chemicals in their body. And his company is the one that does all the transactions. And he's been contributing to his 401k for the last 26 years. And he believes that he'll be there for another 4 years. And after 30 years of being there, he may have a career change or he may stay, wasn't sure. Now, we had a great conversation. He was answering a lot of my questions. And, I said to him, let me ask you a question. Do you know how much you defer in taxes every single year for the last 26 years? Just by chance, do you know? I said, no, I have no idea. I said, would you happen to know how much you contribute to your 401k? He said, I do know that. I do know that I contribute roughly about $400 a month to my 401k. Got it. And you're not sure how much you're deferring in taxes. He just wasn't sure. So here's what I did. And this is what you want to do too. I began to tell a story. Okay, have you ever heard facts tell, stories sell? And so I began to tell a very simple story that anybody could understand who has a 401k. And I use this example right here of deferring taxes into a 401k and what that tax burden in a 401k looks like. And so here's how you want to deliver the information. Number one is saving assets. What does that mean? That means that someone is contributing to a retirement plan so that they then can put themselves in a position when it is time to retire to have the same type of income so that their lifestyle hasn't changed. So what do they begin to do? Well, typically when you first start a job, you come in and they have an outside third party that'll come in from an investment company and someone will be sitting there in an office for a couple days and all the employees come in if it's that time of year for open enrollment. And the employee comes in and sits down. It's the first day maybe at a full-time job. And the individual says, do you want to go a little bit more aggressive into your 401k in the stock market? Or would you like to be a little bit more conservative? Now, most people really, they're there to do the IT department. They're there to be the electrical, do the electric system. They're there to, for whatever, they're there in sales or whatever their job is. They're there for marketing. They don't know about investments. But what do? They typically say what I said at my first day on the job many moons ago. I said, I'm not really sure. I'll take your advice. Why don't you go ahead and put me into whatever stocks or bonds or whatever you think would be the right fit. And I'll just go with you on that. And I was done and I was out the door. And that's what a lot of people do. And so in this particular case, here's the story that you want to tell. Let's say you had an individual who was making $75,000 a year in income. And they are putting forth $7,500 a year annually towards their retirement. So they make $75,000 a year. They're taking out $7,500 out of their check. They're putting it towards their retirement, and they're deferring $2,500 in taxes annually. Now, out of that, over the course of 30 years, they would have deferred $75,000 in taxes. Pretty cool, right? And, this is how I talk in the home or to a business owner. I explain exactly what I just explained here. So that's pretty cool, right? You deferred $75,000 in taxes over the course of 30 years. And at the end of 30 years, you want to be able to have the same lifestyle. You want to be able to still earn that $75,000 a year in income that you were making. Well, here's your spending assets. Well, in order to withdraw and have $75,000 in income, what I'll share with the client is, let's say at that income level, you're at a 25% tax bracket. What that means is, over the course, annually, $75,000 a year, paying taxes at a 25% tax bracket, right here, each year, their tax liability, over the course of 15 years, was $375,000 that they paid back to Uncle Sam in taxes. Every year, $375,000 over the course of 15 years. And over the course of 20 years, it's $500,000, $500,000. So I asked them this question. I go, look, does that now sound like a pretty cool plan? To be able to defer for all those years and then have to return back around and have all those types of taxes taken out of your retirement. Nobody really thinks it's cool at that point. I say, I have another option for mortgage protection. This other option allows you to have a cash value account that you could withdraw loans from tax-free because it's attached to a life insurance policy. And the loophole is the tax code. And the tax code doesn't allow a life insurance program to be a taxable item as long as the cash value in the policy doesn't fall below what the actual face amount of the life insurance is. So we let it continue to grow over time and it compounds at an interest rate. And at that point, I will then ask them, would you be more open to something like I explained to you first that has living benefits, but at the end of 20 years or 30 years, you are then going to actually have to reapply for life insurance. And if you have any pre-existing conditions over the next 20 years, imagine how much harder it's going to be for you to be able to qualify for that plan. And you're going to be purchasing insurance 20 years from now at age, for example, if you're 52, at age 72, what do you think's cheaper? Purchasing insurance today or purchasing insurance in 20 years? Or would you like the opportunity to be able to have a cash value account? We're actually going to give you one extra living benefit, which is the critical injury benefit. You'll have a tax-free retirement account. You have all the living benefits for the mortgage protection, and you have a face value for life insurance. Right? So I've hyped up the program. I've built it up for them. They then say, yeah, I would love that. That would be great, but how much does that cost? That's going to be, I've had people go, so what is it, like $5,000, $10,000? And I go, no, here's what's interesting. For this particular program, you get to decide what the premium is. And for the first program, I'm going to show you 2 or 3 options, and I'm going to tell you what the premiums are going to be, and then we'll decide together. Which one would you rather have? And 100% of the time, the individual, because I explained it in simple terms, and because they currently have a 401k, their wheels are spinning and they're going, man, I've been deferring all this time. I can only imagine what I'm going to get hit with in taxes. If I don't make a decision now, it might be too late. And I want to have something that I can have tax-free. And I like all these living benefits. And I'm getting a 4th living benefit. This is what's going on in their mind. This is what they're thinking about. And so I asked them, which one would you rather take a look at? Every single time they go, I want to see the one that has the tax-free account. I go, great. At that point in time, what I'll do is I'll pull out my laptop. I then begin to go through the illustration process. I give them a Flex Life 2 brochure, and I put in their information. We get to death benefit and funding. And if you're just looking at this now for the first time, and you're saying, Brett, you're throwing out a lot of language, a lot of it sounds foreign, you can go back in to our YouTube channel or the video section channel of the Facebook group, and you'll find a video that says how to run an IUL illustration. So I get to the death benefit and funding information, and I begin to go through the process, and then I look at the client, and I go, now let me ask you a question. The rule of thumb is you're typically supposed to do 3 to 5% of your income should go towards your retirement. Now, you had already told me you're doing about $400 a month. Now, in that particular case, I've already asked. I've said, is your employer matching you dollar for dollar? Yes, my employer matches me dollar for dollar. Are you contributing anything over and above what your employer currently is matching you? If somebody says yes, explain to them they're going to get dinged twice. They're going to get taxed on the match, and they're going to get taxed on the amount that they're contributing over and above. So now they get hit twice. In his particular case, he does not contribute over and above. He only does the match. So he's doing $400. So I said, would you like to do 50% of that? He said, I can do $200 a month. Great, let's go ahead and pop that in the illustration. Let's see what it looks like. He had a refinance on his home that he's owned for about 30, I think he had said 32 years. He bought it when he was young, when he first met his wife. And he went, so they refied for $94,000. When I ran the illustration, he was getting roughly $122,000. I showed him that. I showed, here's your net death benefit, more than covers your refinance. So your house would be paid off in the event of a catastrophe. Then I went ahead and I showed him, again, I reiterated the living benefits. And then I took him down and I showed him you're paying into this to age 72. So he's paying into it for 20 years. And at age 72, here was the amount of cash value that you have. And then I showed him how it continues to grow. It's like, this is a no-brainer. This makes total sense. Then I went in and I said, okay, would you like me to run it for an additional amount of $300 a month? He goes, you know what, let me see for $300 a month. I said, great. So we go ahead and we put the $300 in, and then he just wanted to backtrack and he said, look, I feel like today I can do the 200. If I ever wanted to go over and above, could I contribute a little bit more? Absolutely. It's a flexible. That's Flex Life too. It's a flexible premium amount. You have the option to do that. You and I are going to do some annual reviews and we can reevaluate this retirement plan with your mortgage protection plan in a year from now. And then I went through my whole process of how I'm going to follow up. And so that's how that particular appointment went. That's how the majority of the appointments go. When you explain this portion in very simple terms, most people will get it. And so one of the last things that I want to explain to everybody watching this here today is there are three types of risk. You have your structural risk, you have your market risk, and you have your tax risk. Now, this is a little bit more of a high-level conversation, but this is more of an educational portion that you can still educate your client on, especially a business owner. They'll get it, and especially somebody who's been contributing to a 401k for a long period of time or a 403b, they'll get this. One of the things that you can point out when giving this particular example is you can talk about structural risk. And what that means is that a 401k or 403b cannot be touched till age 59 and a half. And if you do, there's a 10% penalty plus an income tax penalty, right? So now you're getting penalized. There's no living benefits in your 401k, and it doesn't really work as a life insurance policy. But that's the structural risk. That's the risk that you take upon signing up into one of these programs. Well, we don't have that type of risk in an IUL. You do have to give it time. I always let people know you have to give it at least a minimum of 10 years before you even begin to even start to even want to withdraw any kind of loans or with any kind of money out of the cash value. And they totally understand that. And I let people know, a lot of times I even reiterate that, right? And so and then, you have your market risk. And this is a statistic. As of last year, in 2017, the S&P was approximately up about 19.6%. And during the first 2 months of 2018, it had dropped 12%. So literally, you lost 12% of your investments during the first 60 days of 2018. What does that mean? That means that if most people who work at a job who have a 403b or 401k, they lost 12% even though they did nothing different. But that is some of the market risk that you get involved in. So you want to write this phrase down. If I was able to show you market-like returns without market-like risk, would you be open to that? On last Thursday, I met with a gentleman works as a civil engineer. That was one of the things that I had presented to him, which piqued his interest. I said that exact statement. He said, well, what do you mean? Because he likes to do some investments outside of his 401k. He's got a couple things going on. That's how I presented it to him. That's how I delivered it based on the conversation we were having. Again, be very clear on this. If the individual is open and they're communicating and it's a positive conversation, and there's some intellect there between the two of you, definitely be able to, open that door to have this conversation in the home. And this is how you will level up your premiums. Because here's what I'll share with you about my first example, the gentleman I met with yesterday. If I would have gone with the first option and never even spoken about the IUL, 52-year-old guy, healthy, height and weight was proportionate, no meds, probably would have flew right through on a Forrester's app or American National app, and the premium would have been about $75 a month. But because I educated him on the tax burden and I educated him on his 401k, instead of having a $70 a month premium, I now have a $200 a month premium. And instead of him having 3 living benefits, he now has 4 living benefits. And instead of having him try to reapply for insurance at age 72, he now will have permanent coverage and he never has to worry about applying for life insurance ever again. So it is a win-win across the board. It's a win-win for the client and it's a win-win for us, the agents, because we're also there to make money, but most importantly, we're there to help people and put the people over the profits, and the profits will always come, for sure. And then, right, so then you have in 2008, when the market, right, when there was the bubble and the mortgage bubble. Well, what happened is the market gave back 50%, meaning it dropped 50%, just like that. Meaning if you had $100, you gave back 50. And so imagine working at an employer for 30 years and it's 7 days before your retirement. It's your last week of work. You're excited. And you're getting ready to retire. They're going to bring the limo to come pick you up on the last day. The employees are planning the party. Everybody's excited. You've got a trip planned with the wife and the kids. Man, you are going into your golden years. And then the market crashes. And everything that you had in your retirement, even though you're still going through this deferring tax burden and you're deferring, but imagine the money that you did have in there was cut in half 48 hours, 72 hours before your retirement. What would you do? What would you do? So this is a question that you can ask your clients when presenting them with this scenario. 2008, with the housing market crash and the bubble, 50% was lost. What would you do if you were getting ready to sell your business and move on to something new, but you couldn't? What would you do? And then let them answer the question. Because that's what happened to millions of Americans. That's what happened to Mike Schless's mom, and she had to continue working till 2011. And that's what happens when you see people working at the convenience stores and the Walmarts and the Targets of the world, and they're in their 60s and 70s and the Home Depots. Now granted, some people want to stay busy, and I appreciate that. But some people are working not because they want to, but because they have to. Because they lost their retirement. And then you have your tax risk. Your tax risk falls into the category of the $19 trillion debt that our economy's in. And this is not a video to talk about the economy or our presidency or anything that's happened in the past. These are just the facts. And the facts is, and this is a question that you can ask a client. Here's one of the facts. Do you believe that taxes will go down, stay the same, or go up within the next 20 years or within the next 30 years as you're contributing to your 403B or 401k? Now, taxes are at the lowest that they've ever been today. But do you believe, and every decade typically, there comes a time when there's a crash. Do you believe the taxes will go down, stay the same, or go up? Let them answer the question, okay? Now, if it's somebody who has a brand new mortgage and they've got little children in the house, point this out. You also realize that you're not going to have as many tax write-offs over the next 30 years as well. So there's going to be, right, you're not going to have the mortgage tax write-off because you've paid off your home. You're not going to have the child tax write-off because your kids are going to be growing out of the house. So you're going to have less write-offs. You're going to have more tax risk. So these are the conversations that you want to have. You don't want to overcomplicate it. You don't want to, you just want to keep it extremely simple, but point out the facts, the tax risk, the structural risk, the market risk, and then give them this simple example. And then you'll be able to explain to them, now, would you rather, right, do you want to pay on the harvest or do you want to pay on the seed? And then let them answer. And then when you go and you illustrate it and you show it to your clients, to your friends, to your relatives, to whomever that might be, and you show them that illustration, what I also like to point out is that the insurance company, the way they run their illustrations, is they like to under-promise and over-deliver. So what they're showing you here is the bare minimums of what would actually happen in the market over the next 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. And I show them that. And you can pull open that report and you can show them exactly what that looks like. So this is how you'll be able to go from maybe taking a $70 premium to a $200, $400, $600, $800 a month premium, and upwards and onwards from there. Guys, any questions that you have about this training video, about anything that we're teaching you here, please don't hesitate to reach out. We look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.